Well, I'm delighted to say that joining me on the Godcast this week is Mark Morris, and Mark is frontman of the Bluetones. Has enjoyed a long career in the music industry. Mark, it's absolutely brilliant to get you on the Godcast. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thanks. Nice to be here.
Does it seem a long time ago since those days of hit records?
Yes,
Well, it is, isn't it?
well, because it is, yeah. Because frankly, it is. It does, yeah, and it's not something I really think about, in my day to day at all. We just sort of, you know, and I guess like most other people, I guess being a musician or having had success as a musician, my life has been documented in a way that other people's haven't. So, people can remind me about stuff from a quarter of a century ago where I can't do the same back.
Yeah, yeah. I always wonder, Mark, where I'm sure you've done loads of interviews, and I could quite easily sit here and ask you questions about Slight Return and the hits and everything, but I was wondering about your voice. Actually, when did you first realize that your voice was a good instrument? Was it a choir voice kind of thing, or was it when the voice broke? Or
I think I enjoyed singing at school. I joined the school band at the first opportunity. I just I got pleasure from singing at a certain age. When I was kind of 14 onwards, and I'd sign up for all the school productions and do all the school band stuff, and do a couple of after school things, which, you'd have to give up your own time for, and enjoyed all that. But it wasn't really my aim to be the singer in a band. I quite enjoyed when I formed or joined when I joined a proper band, sort of that was an outside of school band. It was as a guitarist, as a rhythm guitarist, and we had a singer, and he was great. But and I had no intention of usurping him or anything like that. But as time progressed, the band kind of changed. People left, and new people joined. It became a completely different outfit, and Robin, the singer, left. And so I just took on the singing duties at that point as a stopgap, really. We were hoping to find someone else to be a singer, but I just kind of got lumped with it. And I mean, now obviously I think about it more as an instrument
mm,
that I've been using it for, 30 odd years. But in those days, it was really just a case of, well, no one else can do it. No one else wants to do it. No one else is going to step forward. So I'll do it for now. And I got lumbered with it.
how has it changed over the years, if it has?
My voice,
Yeah.
well, I like all singers. It's got a little deeper. Um, I tend to write now at home with the guitar dropped a semitone, so that I can sing, and that's just a semitone, so it's not much really, but it's noticeable to the classically trained ear, not mine. So it's got deeper, and um, I'm lucky because I've got a quite a what am I? What would you say I am? I'm not.
I don't know. I'm not an
What's the
expert.
term? What's the term?
I would say you're a good singer.
Yeah, I think there's a term. An alto, I think it is.
Alto, okay, right, yeah.
Right. And I think I'm still in about that range. But I feel more confident now as a singer than I did when I was younger. I guess that's just a case of having used it so much. I feel more confident. I think the lack of confidence comes or came for me because my voice would keep packing in, my throat would keep giving out after a few shows. But over the years, it's developed as a muscle, which is what it is really. And now I can sing 5, 6 nights in a row, for an hour and a half every
Mm,
night. And as long as I don't go crazy afterwards, I'm still fine the next day. I'm
yeah.
not suffering. I'm not drinking loads of honey and remedies and whatnot sort of things just to try and get up to show speed. So I'm more confident now because I seldom lose my voice.
And what about the love for music, Mark? Where did that originate from? I love music. I'm not a musician. I can't sing really. I do sing in church, but I'm not the greatest singer. But I was going to throw these. These were my two songs that I remember thinking there's something in these that made me listen to more music. one was Billy Don't Be a Hero by Paper Lace.
Lace.
Do you remember
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
And the other one was The Most Beautiful Girl in the World by Charlie Rich. My dad was an avid Radio 2 kind of, and I remember, oh, it was Ed Stewart, I remember, and thinking, oh, I like these. And and it's peculiar, but from there, I started exploring music and the love affair continues. What were your kind of tunes? Can you remember?
Well, I can remember being very young, and we used to listen to the top 40 on a Sunday, and I remember having my ears pricked up to the radio in general
Hmm.
by Kings of the Wild Frontier by Adam and the Ants.
Hmm.
And not in as much as that I went out and bought the record and it changed my life, but that was what turned me onto the radio. And then every week I would listen to hear that song again, but then you'd hear, the rest of the top 40 as well. And I guess, I mean, I was really, really taken with, you know, when Heaven 17 put out
Yeah.
their album, The Luxury Gap,
Hmm.
that for me was a real gateway into buying albums now and taking music seriously. And those songs on that record, Temptation and the other one, Come Live With Me, which is, it seems a little dodgy now when you listen to the lyrics, but I still like it. But they seem just so epic and so classic, and they really captured my imagination about what pop music could possibly be. And then I started becoming like a big fan of things like Duran Duran and Phil Collins and Genesis and whatnot.
Did
But
you
yeah,
fall
pop
into the
music,
new romantic? Did you go? I was a big Depeche Mode fan. I still am, to be
I
honest.
can see behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah, on the mantle. Yeah,
Got
big,
the lads
big,
on the mantelpiece.
big
Yeah.
Dead Gone fan, I went whole hog. Leather jackets, earrings, all that. I'm adorned with Depeche Mode tattoos, although I don't tell my congregation that. But
No,
were you a new romantic, for example?
a little, a
Yeah.
little. I dabbled, but I dabbled with a lot of things when I was a teenager. I dabbled with being a goth for 6 months, a new romantic for probably about 8 months. But I didn't like all of the music. I didn't like all of the new romantic bands. I didn't, therefore. But I just loved Duran Duran,
Yeah.
and I think as my brother, as I got older, as I became into my teens, my brother and I, we shared a bedroom. We sort of cross pollinated all the things we'd be hearing at school, and we would, because we had limited space in our bedroom, we'd make an agreement between ourselves. If we both liked an artist, it was whoever got in there first. It was like, okay, well, they're your band. For example, Scott started buying Talking Heads records, so I couldn't buy Talking Heads records.
Okay.
I was buying Pet Shop Boys records, and we both loved the Pet Shop Boys, but there's no point in him buying them as well. He would buy Erasure records, and I loved Erasure, but there's no point. So we had limited space, so we worked out this quite a groovy little system. And also, during those years, our mum had a job at Shepperton Studios, Lee International Studios it is now. It's a big film studios now, towards the west of London, Middlesex way. And after school, we'd have to sometimes accompany her to work because she couldn't have babysitters. She couldn't afford babysitters, and she ran the bar there. So some Fridays and Saturdays, we'd be there all night. And of course, when there was stuff going on, we got to go and visit. So, for example, they shot the video for the Wild Boys, Duran Duran, there, and that obviously blew my mind. So, Mum said, "Bring your records down, and one of the electricians will take you on set and get them signed." And they did sign our records, and they walked me and my brother around the whole set and explained to us what was going to happen in the video. It was completely mind blowing. It gave us about 15 minutes of their time. And then a few months later, we got to meet Phil Collins, and he let us watch his show. He was doing a full production thing, and he did it to just myself, my brother, and my sister. And then as soon as he finished, he came running down the ramp and bounded over to us and was like, "Hey guys, what did you think?" And it was just. So I think at a certain age, it seemed like music or pop music was an accessible career because it seemed within our reach, if you know what I mean. It wasn't
Yeah.
just on the television. It was where my mum worked in a way. She only ran the bar, but she got to meet some glamorous people.
Yeah.
So I think from an early age, it was something that was like, I want to be in a band. I want to be in a group, you know.
And lo and behold, that happened.
It
And
did.
what you described you were the Phil Collins, you were the Duran Duran in those studios, weren't you?
Well, one likes to think, I'll keep the circle unbroken.
I just want to ask one last question about Duran Duran. I do like them very much. Have you ever covered a song? Have you ever done it in a live set or?
First song I ever learned to play on the acoustic guitar was Rio by Duran Duran. It's a nice E minor C, A minor C thing, so it's really simple to play. And I've covered some Duran Duran in my solo sets. The band, I don't think we haven't covered Duran Duran yet. It's not it's not a universal opinion in the band
No.
that they're great. It's just my
I'd love to hear you sing The Chauffeur.
oh
That is
kinky.
that's a great song. That's my favorite Duran song.
And of course, they brought out all those saucy videos, didn't they, in the 1980s? The girls on film and the chauffeur, particular ones, which obviously gave them an extra sort of frisson to to my 13-year-old mind. It was like, oh, they're a bit saucy, a bit adult, a bit forbidden. So I liked them even more.
So how did it all progress? How do you tell your parents, for example, you want to be in a pop band. Did you go get a proper job for a while or?
Not long, sort of. Well, my mum remarried when I was a teenager, and then when I was, I think, 17 and Scott was 15, that she decided to move down to Cornwall. We were living in West London, and I'd already left home, and I was living with my girlfriend's family because I didn't have a great relationship with my stepfather, so I left. And then Scott was still living at home, and then she moved to Cornwall, and Scott was in the middle of his GCSEs, and I was in the middle of my A levels. So he stayed and lived with my grandparents, and I moved into a shared house, which became the house that where I met Dodgy and moved in with them, which is on the same estate as my grandparents, which is quite handy. Sorry, I keep pulling all these tabs down. So there wasn't really anyone to have to explain it to. I didn't know where my dad was at that point. He'd gone missing when I was 12, disappeared when I was 12, and he hadn't come back into my life yet. So there was no one to say, get a proper job. What you're doing, you're bumming around. You're wasting your time. Well, there was a few people who said you're wasting your time. But they obviously just had my best interests at heart, but they didn't realize how determined we all were. So what I did was I had a job. I worked at Our Price Records for a little while, and I didn't like it there. It's one of those jobs you think it's going to be great. You're going to be working with music all day long, selling records. You think it's going to be like High Fidelity when you're just talking about all the things you love. No, it's not. It's quite draining and makes you resentful of a lot of music. But then anyway, I did that for about 3 or 4 months, and then I got fired. And because I got fired, I was able to sign on the dole because you weren't eligible if you just quit your job. And so I went on the dole and got housing benefit, which meant I could stay in this house, which had a garage, and we could all move in. All 4 of us moved into this shared accommodation, and we used the garage as a rehearsal space. Excuse me. Like I say, Dodgy had lived there before us, and they built the initial rehearsal space themselves using pallets and mattresses, but it was a couple of years old or whatever, and it was a bit soggy. So we rebuilt it and sealed it all, the roof properly, that sort of thing. And we rehearsed there, and we lived there for, I don't know, about 3 years until we got signed, and then we could afford to sort of live in our own flats. But yes, that's a long-winded answer to your initial question. There wasn't really anybody to say, get a proper job. My nan and granddad worried a bit, but then we kept ourselves busy.
Yeah. I want to ask you about getting signed, Mark. I mean, it's every band's dream, isn't it? Once you were signed, did you feel like you'd won the World Cup, or was there still work to do?
No, it felt like even then, even though we were quite young, we didn't feel like we reached the top of the mountain. And we've been getting lots of advice from people all the time saying, don't rest on your laurels. That's just the first step. Anything and everything can still go wrong at this point. It's just with a bigger budget. And we didn't sign for a lot of money either. There were people offering us all sorts of money because at that time we were quite touted and the hot new ticket for some reason. And we went with A&M because it was a smaller label in terms of the building was smaller and the company was there were fewer people working at the company, so it seemed more personable and you could just walk in and speak to someone directly rather than have to go to a receptionist, go to a lift, that was, which a lot of these big record companies were at that in the 1990s. And so we signed with them not for a great advance but for good points, i.e. on sales. So if the records did well, we'd do okay, that sort of thing. And they pretty much left us to it. They didn't interfere with artwork or track selections. I mean, there were conversations about which song would be the next single, that sort of thing. And to their credit, they pushed for Slight Return, and we weren't too keen. We didn't feel like it was the best number for that occasion, but it turned out that we were completely wrong as usual. But yeah, they were really good for us. I think it was. I think we were the first debut number one for the A&M UK branch, or something like that.
What does that feel like, Mark? I love chatting to musicians. I spoke to Spider Stacey from the Pogues, where he talked about a story where, for a long time nobody queued round the corner to watch the Pogues, and then all of a sudden, bang, it all explodes. Kenny Thomas, who is 80s soul
Yeah, I remember
superstar.
Kenny Thomas.
Yeah, he talks about that as well. It's like, oh my God. Can you remember where you thought, wow, this is real now. We are in the big time.
There's nothing as glamorous as that. It was we were on a press junket, so we were going around Europe and hitting one or two countries a day, sort of going to a hotel for the day, doing interviews, flying somewhere else, doing interviews. It was quite glamorous in that regard, but this was just ahead of the release of the album, and it was a Tuesday evening, and we were in Amsterdam at the American Hotel. Oh no, we were going to the American Hotel, and so we were at an airport, just leaving an airport, and it was somebody got a message. It was Pages, wasn't it? It was Pages in those days. Our European rep got a message on his Pages. So he called back, called the label, called the label, and he got the phone call saying, Slight Return is midweek number 2. And it's out. It's not going to be number 1 because Babylon Zoo was still outstripping everybody. He said, but you're going to stay at number 2 because you've sold twice as many as what was number 3. And it's like, what? You talk, so it was a moment of, so it wasn't anything like as sweet as walking out of a building and seeing a lovely big queue of people and going, where did these guys come from? Like they do in the movies, or maybe what happened to the Pogues. But with us, we were walking through an airport and then got to a hotel and had a little breather and had another couple of hours of interviews to do. And all the time thinking, what's going on? Is this, when we get back home, are we going to be like famous? Which we probably were for a couple of weeks. But no, I don't remember any specific moment of thinking we've arrived, but there was that confusion where it was just like, that must be some mistake that that single's number 2. Our previous single had gone to like 31, number 19, and then boom, number 2. Are you serious? We were hoping for number 15. And then the album came out and that went to number 1. And I don't know. I mean, we didn't lord it up or anything like that. We occasionally meet up on a Wednesday and go into town and have a few drinks. But that was about it. We didn't go lording it up or going to all the parties or, we lived out west.
Yeah.
So we weren't really in the thick of it. We weren't really anywhere near Camden. It was awkward to get to and from in those days.
when you reflect on those times, Mark, are they things that you reflect on with fond memories? You know, do you rejoice in it all?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, and it's funny because it's the those weird experiences were shared by my three other best friends, and we're
Yeah.
still best friends, and we still see a lot of each other. So it's it's not it's just a reminder of all the stuff that we have in common, us four. You know, because we really are like a little family. We really get on and
Yeah.
look after each other and support each other and like each other. You know.
Yeah. And we had, I had, I'm wondering, I reckon you'll remember the Miltown Brothers. Remember the Miltown Brothers?
Mm-hmm. They were on
Uh,
A&M Records.
yeah. Um,
Which way should I jump?
that was a good song. Yeah. Yeah. And they had, they didn't have quite the success that you had, but they had a top 20 album. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then the wheels came off and they lost their way. When you have ridden the crest of that wave for that period, did you feel the pressure to kind of deliver again? What was it like for you in
Yeah,
that?
very much so. I think as well, like just looking back, um, I think you can hear that a little bit in our second record. I think it's over long. I think we were trying too hard, you know, on our second record. It's like 13 tracks long. It comes in at almost an hour. And I think we were desperate to give value for money when really we could have trimmed it a little bit and spent more time on 11 songs. If that makes any sense. But yeah, you do feel it, even though there's not a lot you can do about it. And after we'd had the success of the first record, we toured it quite a lot. And we'd been around Europe, and we'd been to America and Japan and Australia, and it was quite tiring. And it was brilliant fun, but you don't realise how tired you are until you stop. You know, whatever nervous energy, excitement keeps you going, and youth, of course. But when we got home, we were just exhausted, and we probably had about 10 days, and it was like right back into the studio. You got to start work on album number 2, and we went away to this place in Surrey called the House in the Woods. We booked ourselves there for 6 weeks. It was a full residential studio. You get your breakfast, your lunch, and your dinner all cooked for you by Marike, who was the wife of Gisbert, who were the couple that owned the place. And Gisbert was like a studio engineer, so he'd help out and help you sort of iron out any problems you had in the studio. So the plan was to go there for 6 weeks and thrash out the ideas that we'd had and expand them and hopefully be like somewhere towards an album. After 6 weeks, we came up with 3 songs, and 2 of those ended up as B-sides of the other song, which ended up as the first single. But we were just burnt out, and we hadn't at that point got into the habit of writing on the road, writing in transit. We'd never done it before. We'd all just written in our garage, written in our bedrooms, and here we were, not spending that much time in a rehearsal room or at home. So we had a period where we just went lo-fi again and went to a crummy little rehearsal room and just eked it out after having this 6 weeks of luxury, which, to be honest, felt like a much needed holiday.
Mhm.
It was during the summer. The weather was lovely, and we liked hanging out. It was like not like we were sick of each other. We were just tired, and there was this lovely place. We're getting fed. There's a pool table. There's bar billiards. There's lovely, grounds. It felt like the record company were most displeased, but we needed that.
I was going to ask about the relationship with the record company. I mean, while the going's good, it's good, isn't it? But when it starts being the opposite of that, and the hit records aren't forthcoming, did you feel the pressure building? And just tell us about how the relationship ultimately ended with the record label.
Well, it was a case with us. It was more a case of we were still doing all right, hit singles wise. We weren't having anything like number 2s. But I don't think when they signed us, they expected that. It was a bolt out of the blue for everybody. But what actually happened was, at the time, A&M was owned by Polygram, which owned other record companies, Polydor, London Records, a few others I can't quite remember. And then, but anyway, Polygram was bought out by another company called Seagram, which is one of those huge American conglomerates. They do everything from, cars to buildings to whiskey and everything in between. And they bought Polygram, and the decision was that they were going to close A&M Records, and all the artists were going to be dispersed to other labels under the umbrella, unless of course it broached terms of their agreement and they could leave. But that wasn't the case with us. So we went from there to Mercury Records, having had 2 successful records with A&M. But now that no longer existed, and the people we'd worked with and enjoyed our success with were gone. And so we just kind of lumped and dumped on a new office who doesn't really know us, doesn't really like us, I guess, because it's quite a tribal world. You like the bands that you work for, and you don't want success for bands on the other label. I don't know. It's that dog eat dog world. I'm sure you can imagine. So we found ourselves at Mercury, and with a whole new team and a whole new, MD, and we did one record with them, and it had on it, I think, 2 top 20 singles. There might be 3, but I think it's definitely 2. And it did really well. The album came out, went to number 7 in the charts, blah, blah, blah. But they still dropped us at the first opportunity. We released that album, did the tour for the album, and it was kind of, well, now it's a singles album, guys, and then that's it. So for us, it wasn't a case of like the relationship got awkward because we'd stopped being successful. It was more of a case of just, it was behind the scenes changes that had some effect on our career at that time. There was also cultural sea changes afoot. And so I'm not for one second saying that had that not happened, we'd be Coldplay right now. But
I'm glad you're not.
Yeah, right, one's enough. But there you go. That was how it all dissolved for us. And then we put a record out on our own. Did we? Yeah, we did our own label for one record. And then we did one with Cooking Vinyl. It sort of all gets a bit fractured after that.
Yeah, and there's I know you guys are back together, but obviously the sabbatical comes. What was that like? I can't remember who I asked this question. When you're not working with the band like you did, was that kind of a grieving process for you?
It really was. It was so unexpected. Because we'd had a couple of bad experiences as a group behind the scenes where we'd been knocked quite heavily, and our enthusiasm had gone, not for the band, not for each other, but it's like our energy had gone. We were too tired to get up again. It was like we'd had a bad relationship, a good management, good people, but it hadn't worked out, right? And we felt let down, etc. So we decided, rather than just see our baby getting kicked around, let's just put it to bed. Just do one last tour and savor these memories. It's not what we want to do, but it looks like it's what the world wants us to do. So we did one final tour, for which everyone came out of the woodwork, of course. And we'd all set ourselves in our mind, this is the right thing to do. This is a good idea. We've had a great ride, some great memories. Don't want to be playing the toilet circuit again, or that sort of thing. And we were all completely at peace with that decision. And then we finished the UK tour. There were a couple of extra dates added at the end. We did those. And then went out to Japan to play 3 shows. And we did a couple in Tokyo, I think Nagoya and Osaka. And then we finished in Osaka. And we came off stage, the last song of the last gig, and all just lost it. All this emotion came out and all just started crying. And it was real sadness. It was real sense of, oh man, I didn't want this to end, and here we are, it's ended. And it stayed ended for 4 years before we decided Oh, come on. It's our train set. Let's get it out again. Just because we said we're not coming back doesn't mean we don't have to come back.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk about that in a minute, but just that those 4 years, Mark, what was life for like? What was life for you like then? Was it, a lot of rock and rollers go and live in a dark room, don't they? What was it like?
Oh, I just cracked on. I made a solo record. I got a couple of the guys involved with that. And then I taught, and that's kind of what led to us getting back together. I had a couple of things going on. I'd just become a father again for the second time, so I was distracted by that. And like I say, I was starting to try and build a solo career because I still wanted to continue. I loved doing what I had the chance to do so far, and that was really enjoyable. And I collaborated with a few people. I was able to collaborate with Matt Berry at some point, and I went out. I tried doing these songwriter things where you'd go and work with other songwriters to try and create the latest hit single. And I did. I think went on 2 of those experiments, and I didn't enjoy it at all. So I'm really not cut out for that. And so I just concentrated on writing my own songs. Now, if anyone wants to cover one of my songs, they can have them. But I can't write to order, I've discovered. And then I had a tour for my second album, my second solo record. And individually, each of the rest of the Bluetones, Adam, Scott, and Ed's, contacted me individually and said, "Oh, you're going out on the road. If you need a bass player, let me know. Or if you need anyone on drums, drop me a line." So
The Bluetones.
yeah, I just said to them, "Why don't we just go out again, the 4 of us, and a keyboard player?" And I said, we won't list it as the Bluetones, just list it as Mark Morris still. But when people come in, they go, "Oh, it's the bloody Bluetones." When we come on stage, and we'll play my songs, and at the end we'll do a couple of Bluetones numbers, and that'll be the end of that. And everyone was just like, "Great, just want to get out on the road, just want to play." So we did that, and then we were obviously that just got us talking again. So we should just play again. So we spoke to our agent and said, "We'd like to play again." I've had this idea we were going to do a couple of charity shows, and the agents, and we thought the agent would be sort of hacked off really because we'd split up and all that sort of thing. And they just said, "Well, if you want to, I think they'd be interested in you doing the UK tour if you fancied it, rather than just a couple of shows." So we did. We got back together and we went out on the road again. And
Did
that
that feel?
was
Did that feel? I remember chatting to Rick Witter from Shed 7 about this. Now they're back together and they've got a new album out and it's doing well. But I know he's not doing it for the Wonga. He's doing it because
Rick. No,
he's out with his mates and they're doing. It's almost like you found the love of what you were doing all over again. Did that feel the
absolutely.
same for you? Yeah.
I think it feels like that more and more. The more time passes as well. It's not the money earned; it's the time spent. I just came up with that. That's pretty good, isn't it?
The goodness song.
Uh, but it's how you spend your time, man. It's the only thing we're rationed with while we're here.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I tell my children all the time. It's like, do the things that make you happy, and this makes us all very happy. We can't put our finger on why. It's not the showing offness of it. It's not the being up on stage in front of people. It's the chemistry of being in a unit that's 4 individuals working as one. That's quite something. You never have that as an artist on your own.
Yeah.
You only have that in a group.
And do you feel like you've negotiated the rock and roll career pretty well? You're looking well. You
Well,
sound
thanks.
like you've got your marbles and
Well, so far so good. Um, I do take care of myself though these days, and like today, I've had an unexpectedly busy day. I played squash this morning, then I went to the gym, and I've got the ingredients together for a casserole I'm making this evening. And I'm playing football tonight, and I'm playing squash again in the morning. I mean, this isn't every day. This is a busy, but I exercise a lot. I've always kept busy. I don't drink when I'm at home. I need a glass of wine if I'm performing. I just need one in me just to get me that level of relaxed, slightly relaxed. But I don't drink at home. I take care of myself. I've never got into the drug scene. Marijuana is my only vice, really. Well, really, totally. The odd whiskey, the odd wine, and marijuana. Those are Vices I have, sir. Yeah.
And you've got talking about live performances. You got gigs on the way.
Yes, there's a tour starting the end at the beginning of October, the 11th of October. We go over to Ireland for 3 shows, and then back here for a full UK tour, about 3 weeks on the road. And where are we? Oh, I don't know if we're near Burnley.
You are. You're coming to. I don't know if you've played here before, Mark. It's the Bon Olswick Arts Centre.
Oh, Adam and I are playing there. Yes.
It's yeah, it is an amazing little place.
Yeah, I've played
I
there
saw Ian
twice
McNabb there.
before.
Yeah,
Oh, you saw Annie McNabb there, did you?
yeah.
He's very popular around that part. He usually does 4 shows, and he does 2 matinees as well, doesn't he? 2 nights and two matinees.
He's a character, is Ian?
I've never met him. I've got lots of mutual friends, but I've never met him in
Yeah.
all these years, and I'm a fan. So it's a shame.
And just
So
Mark, I've got to ask you, it's the Godcast. I've got to kind of dig up some spiritual questions. Are you a guy who likes to explore music? You know, I mean, I've not been a priest all that long, 10 years or so, and I didn't really get church music. But as I've got older, I really enjoy it. Have you ever explored religious music or used church
nice.
organs and stuff in your
I've
music?
never had to go on a church organ with all those foot pedals and all that. No, I've never done that. I have a couple of religious records in my collection. I sometimes put on Christmas time. They're like York Minster Choir and that sort of
Mm.
thing. But no, I wouldn't say I. Well, that's difficult to say because a lot of classical music is religious music, isn't it? A lot of it was written for religious ceremonies. You know, they were on commission by the church, as was a lot of great art on commission by the church. But I wouldn't say I would go. I've sought out religious music. I'm trying to think. I mean, I listen to classical music quite a lot because I have it on in the car. I think it makes me a better driver.
Has religion influenced your writing, or what's your view on religion? Are you kind of
My views on religion are that I'm a bit baffled by organized religion, but I'm very much curious about spirituality and other energies in people, in us. You know, more than just the matter of which we're made, the thing that the life force and what that is, and our part in all of this, how everything affects us. I do believe that we are affected by everything in this world on a deep and a daily and an unconscious as well as conscious level. You know, the way the wind blows through the trees, it's something to notice and something to feel part of. And having those thoughts and having that sense of peace with my place in this messy old cosmos does give me a lot of comfort and strength when I've needed it.
yeah.
And being reminded of that has given me strength when I've needed it. It's not that I'm good at drawing it from myself, but being reminded of certain things. I've never been a fan of organized religion, and I've never been a fan of. And this all sounds probably very crass to you.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
I just never been a fan of anything that says you must believe, right? This. I always think that's a bit of a red flag for me because those things are there's usually an element of control behind them. And I don't like the idea of, beyond moral lines, I don't like the idea of rules. I don't like being told what I can and can't eat and what I can and can't wear on a certain day of the week. And I realize there's more to all organized religions than this, but I do still sort of think that they're all very similar. They're all mostly books written by men, and I'm not like a big super femme, but we all know that certain men can be problematic at any time in their life, let alone when they get to the age when they want to start writing books of rules.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound crass, and I'm very sympathetic to what you've said. But I also think what you said about the spiritual, I think I'm I'm not enjoyed success like you, Mark, but I published a book, and just that is that has become a legacy because people still get in touch, and that's the same with your music, isn't it? You've left a legacy of music there that you will of course know some fans, but there'll be people out there that you just will not have met who you have touched by your music, whether that's on a spiritual level or just on a musical level. But there's something very special about that, you know. And I love getting random emails from people who I don't know and have said
Yeah.
book your book, and so yeah, I do get that very much. So yeah,
Well, there is something special about that. There is something that's it's kind of it's satisfying in a way that's it's not like it doesn't give you a big head. It just makes you feel nice that you've given someone a nice feeling. You
yeah,
know, it doesn't necessarily put a spring in your step every day. It's not as if it's right in the front of your mind, but that's one of the reasons I like touring because it's where you can directly see how people appreciate the music and the pleasure they get from it. You know,
yeah,
which you can't when they're at home listening to it on their in their own spaces. But
no,
yeah, isn't it nice?
it's great.
Isn't it nice to know that you've done something, you've shared some thoughts, and some other people are going out there have gone, yeah, I feel that, I relate to that. That's made me ask questions. That's got me
Yeah,
curious.
yeah. I don't know if you know. Oh, my dog collar's popped out. I'll take it off. Do you know Vinnie Colaiuta, the drummer? He was Sting's drummer and Frank Zappa's drummer. And I asked him about music, and I said to him, "What is it about music? Music takes me to places that reading doesn't, and other things don't. But music takes me to a place." And he said it's a heavenly language, which I thought was quite nice. He said music's a heavenly language. It's in
Yes,
a way that other things can't. Would you agree with that?
yeah, it's a heavenly language. You know, in a sense, meaning it's a spiritual language. It's intangible what it does that no other art form can do to you.
Mm,
It takes you over against your will. Music, you can look away from things, you know, but you can't. Once the tune's got into your head, it's in your head, it's in your heart, and
absolutely.
it's I mean, once you're transported by it.
Fabulous. Do you know, I've loved chatting to you, Mark. I love talking
Likewise.
music, and yeah, I think your gig sold out at Bono's. Otherwise, I was thought going
Oh
along.
well, no, I can sort you out. That's no trouble.
Well, I'm not doing it for that, but I'd yeah,
But just
it's
let me
only
know. Just let
just
me know
venue, but
which
it's
day you'd
great.
like to come. We're doing 2 days.
You're doing 2 days, are you?
Yeah,
Oh,
we're doing two. I think we're doing the 30 days in September, April, June, and November. The 29th and the 30th of November. Yeah, so we're doing the Friday and the Saturday. So whichever day you might fancy, just drop me a line. It's no
all right.
trouble.
I will. I definitely will. Yeah, great. Well, cheers. Well, Mark, it's been brilliant getting you on, and I hope people have enjoyed listening to Mark talk about his career. And as I've brought names up through the podcast, do check out the Godcast. There's loads of musicians as well as comedians and performers and people from the church as well. So, but for now, Mark, thanks for coming on. Cheers.
My pleasure. Thanks for asking me.